Welcome everybody to the last session for today. My name is Bill Bansberg, and I'm with the Migrant Parent Empowerment Consortium, and we're going to talk about math resources for parents and teachers today. And
I'm Alice Martinez Bansberg, and we welcome you to Math Resources for Parents and Teachers.
The Migrant Parent Empowerment Consortium was a consortium of 9 states, and those 9 states helped develop these resources that we're going to talk about today. For the next round, will be a consortium of 8 states, we will continue providing the resources to everyone out there. Everything we talk about today is all available to anybody, whether you're a member state or not. So what we want to, let me see here. Let's put the agenda up. The agenda for today is we're going to start actually with an opening activity, something that it's right after lunch. It's always good to have some kind of activity. So we'll start with an opening activity. Then we're going to talk about the need for math resources in migrant programs. Math resources available for parents, resources available for teachers, and finally, how you can use all of these resources in instruction or to provide assistance to students. So we're going to go right ahead and start that activity.
Okay, one of the reasons we like to open with a little warmer is to just kind of get us focused and thinking about arithmetic and mathematics. So this little activity actually came from the Lawrence Hall of Science. It was developed by the folks who developed family math and equals there. So whether you have paper and pencil available, you might be able to just do this in your head. But we're going to look at the number, the equation 25 divided by 7. Now we're going to take that equation and we're going to embed it within language, something that many of our kids will encounter on a regular basis. So let's look at number 1. Plants cost $7. How many can you buy for $25?
Take a minute and go ahead and come up with an answer.
We'll give you a few minutes to just think about it. Number 2, for a field trip, 1 adult is required for every 7 children. How many adults are needed for a class of 25 students? Number 3, a vacation lasted 25 days. How many weeks is that? And number 4, I paid a student $25 for garden work. She worked for 7 hours. How much did she earn per hour?
We'll leave the questions up on the screen. Take like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and try and figure out the answers to these.
Okay. Go ahead.
But we're going to give them 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. I know there's not enough time, but you can, if you like this activity, you can get it off the PowerPoint, so you can copy it.
So we begin with the expression 25 divided by 7. But now it's embedded with language. And one of the reasons that I love to share this particular opening activity, especially for our parents, is to help them understand, to recognize and understand the critical role that language plays within mathematics. And so students have they see the expression 25 divided by 7. But then to solve for the equation, students are asked to apply knowledge, prior knowledge, and experience with mathematics in order to solve for the equation. So for number 1, plants cost $7. How many can you buy for $25? 3. Number 2, for a field trip, 1 adult is required for every 7 children. How many adults are needed for a class of 25 students? 4. A vacation lasted 25 days. How many weeks is that? 3.5. And the last one, I paid a student $25 for garden work. She worked for 7 hours. How much did she earn per hour? $3.57.
It's the same equation, but depending on the language and the situation, the answers are all different.
And what mathematical procedures are required or tasks to solve the equation varies. And so, long story short, the point of this particular exercise is to remind us, even as educators or adults working with children, that mathematics goes beyond just arithmetic. It goes beyond the adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And it's a great opportunity to engage in dialogue and discussion. How did you come up with that answer? What were you thinking? How many ways are there to solve or to find for this particular problem? So it really lays a nice foundation for jumping off into more complex mathematical concepts.
Our purpose here was to make a point about language demands embedded in mathematics. There are multiple considerations when listening to or solving story problems, and that math problems require understanding of multiple concepts. One math problem may require multiple steps. It's critical to involve parents also to help them understand how to help their own children with math, as well as reading. Alice made a point that there's a difference between mathematics and arithmetic. Arithmetic is, it's addition, it's subtraction, it's a lot of, but when you take it in a step up, you have to understand mathematics as a concept, which is basically how you work with and how you understand how arithmetic works.
One of the ways that I would share with my parents is, I say one of my favorite explanations is arithmetic is to mathematics as spelling is to writing.
Perfect. This thing keeps sticking on me. Okay, let's talk about the resources. Introduction. First of all, for every state, you have to have a comprehensive service delivery plan. You have to have a service delivery plan that describes strategies that you will use on a statewide basis to help migrant children achieve the performance targets of the states. Every service delivery plan is required to respond in some way as to how they will support reading proficiency, math proficiency, high school graduation, reducing the dropout rate, and school readiness. When we look at the need for math instruction in MEP, if you look at the statistics from the Government Performance and Results Act, which we all have to collect, when we collect data for the CSPR, the Consolidated State Performance Report, this data gets reported to the feds and it gets broken down and compiled, actually not broken down, but compiled. And what you can see is where migrant students are in terms of proficiency and relating to math, particularly in this case. And when you look down, the latest data we have is from 2021, And what it shows, and this shows the real need, only 17.2% of migrant students nationally are proficient in math. So it's clearly a very critical need. And there's a need for resources specifically designed for migrant education. ESSA, the act that actually authorizes migrant education, says that to ensure that migratory children receive full and appropriate opportunities to meet challenging state standards and academic standards that all children are expected to meet is the purpose of migrant education. That is our purpose. And so this is a real need. What kind of resources are we talking about, and why are they needed? All schools have resources. They have, classroom teachers, and migrant students will be in those classrooms, and they will be in summer programs that are sponsored sometimes by the school, or sometimes by Title I, or sometimes by migrant education itself. But migrant education as a program is required to provide instruction when those other services cannot or are not available. So all of the resources we have and we talk about today, of course, they're supplemental. They're in addition to or supplemental to, classroom, to Title I, to any other program that there is. But when you do apply our services, when we do take migrant money, and you have a migrant program in a state or in a local district, somehow the migrant program has to provide services, academic services, to students. That can be really tough. In a lot of small states, you may be looking at the local migrant program as a migrant. The local migrant director is wearing 3 different hats, so they're only part-time migrant, and the only help they have is a recruiter. So, what kind of resources in that case can you bring to provide math instruction to kids? Well, that's really the impetus behind why we've developed a lot of these resources that we're going to show to you today. It is a way that even with a very small program, you can provide math instruction, supplemental math instruction, and yes, it is limited, but you can provide math instruction for every single migrant student in your program. It is a way, even with a very small staff, to do that, using the resources we'll show you. It's also a way to support the program in a whole variety of ways, so we'll kind of get into that and talk about that. We've designed the resources to target specific missing foundational skills based on student needs. One of the issues with mobility is that students will pick up so much math in one state, and then they leave in the middle of a course and come to another state, and then they have to go into wherever and start wherever that particular state or that particular school is working in terms of math. And so what ends up happening is that because of mobility, there's all these missing foundational skills. They missed somewhere else, or they doubled up somewhere else. So the way we've designed the resources we're going to show you is it's all based on and aimed at filling in those gaps. So it's all aimed at discrete skills. We also have set up and tried to provide migratory parents with strategies to assist their own kids to learn mathematics in partnership with the school system. We can also use it to facilitate English language acquisition and understanding math vocabulary. Math vocabulary differs from in different languages. One thing that I would like to talk or mention is that all of the resources we're going to talk about today are in English and Spanish. I've chosen those 2 languages specifically because the majority of migrant families and students in this country speak both English and Spanish, or English or Spanish. There are other languages, we understand that. But when you look at the materials that we'll show you, there are literally thousands and thousands of screens of resources that we could not possibly begin to translate into other languages. So we focused on the two we could with the resources we have. So all of these resources are in English and Spanish. And there is a difference between English and Spanish, even in the way certain operations in mathematics are referred to, and all those are accounted for in the resources that are available for you. These are supplemental tools or supplement math instruction in the classroom. You can use them to facilitate family math nights, to bring the families involved, and to facilitate parent involvement in the school in a variety of ways. And we'll cover that in a second. PowerPoint can stick it on me. All right, of the resources we're going to talk about today were developed by this consortium. And this is the consortium that developed the Migrant Literacy NET. And the Migrant Literacy NET is kind of a one-stop shopping area for math resources, as well as other resources in reading and writing, etc. But we're focused on math today. And today we're going to, the Migrant Literacy NET offers 3 portals. There's a student portal for students to go on and be able to take online screeners and tutorials. There is a teacher portal, which has a wide variety of resources for teachers. And there's also a parent portal, which provides a lot of ways that parents can partner with the school to assist their own kids. We're going to focus today. There's also an administrative area to the Migrant Literacy NET, but we're going to focus today on the parent and family resources, as well as the teacher resources. So let's go there. Just keep sticking on me. Okay, all the math resources on the Migrant Literacy NET are based on the standards, and they're based in research. The standards that we used to set these up were both Common Core as well as the NCTM, or National Council of Teachers of Mathematics standards, and they're structured based on the goals of those standards. And so all of the materials are mapped to the Common Core standards, but they were originally based in the NCTM standards. And then based in the research and practice that's recommended in mathematics by the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. We've also set the resources up so that they are linked to WIDA, which is the English Language Acquisition Standards, to make sure that English language acquisition has been considered in all of the resources, and that there are specific recommendations for EL kids. There are the ways that these resources are structured have taken that into account. So what you'll find is all the resources that you're looking at today will be mapped to Common Core as well as the WIDA standards. All right. Our MLN math resources target 2 grade ranges, the pre-K to grade 2, and the grades 3 to 6. The pre-K to the grade 2 targets are number sense, operations, and patterns. So that's the general areas where we have focused. Grades 3 to 6, the areas that are targeted are multiplication, division, patterns and relationships. The more advanced patterns or relationships, where you're looking at developing and understanding patterns that lead to equations. And then there's the 4th category is expressions, equations, and equality. The targets were chosen because these are the key strands that lead to algebra readiness. And algebra readiness for migrant students is a major consideration. It's one of the key factors that has been found in the research that affects graduation from high school. Kids can be algebra ready. They have a much better chance of graduating from high school. So
it's important to note, or I just would like the audience to note that these tutorials, these resources were developed by highly qualified bilingual / special ed educators who have a strong background in mathematics instruction. One of the team members taught mathematics at the University in Chile in Santiago. Another member was the Colorado Council of Teacher of the Year. Couple of the team members studied with the Lawrence Hall of Science, the Equals and Family Math folks. Others participated at the Summer Math Institutes in Mount Holyoke, Massachusetts.
One was a Milken Award winner.
This is my train of thought here. Hey. Oh, and the team themselves spent a significant amount of time looking at all of the math standards across the nation. And they did, I was very, very proud of the tremendous amount of time and effort that the team took in pre-planning, in really looking and mapping out the various skills across the nation, and then moved forward into creating their own for this particular project, always keeping in mind that the target audience were migrant students, and looking at the language demands that were associated with those specific skills.
What I'd like to start with is to talk about the math resource for parents. If you saw the presentation we did on reading, there are similarities here between what we talked about for reading. It's the same, we have the same resources for reading, but what it's important is that we designed a whole parent portal for parents to go log on and be able to find resources to assist their own children, once again, in partnership with the MEP program or in partnership with the school, to learn to read and do math. And so we have the same resources that we set up for reading was set up for math. So what you can do, and what I've chosen to do for the sake of this presentation, is to show all of the slides and everything in English, because I'm assuming everybody watching this speaks English. So whereas on the other hand, what my point is that we have the whole parent portal is also set up in Spanish. And so if you were to log in, you create your own username and password, and parents can be shown how to do that. And you would decide whether you want to look at the content or look at the website in English or Spanish. And then if you choose Spanish, then everything you see would be, represented in Spanish. So the first thing that when you log on as a parent is you have the opportunity to look at a video which explains how to use the system. So if you log on in English, you'll see it in English, and the kinds of resources that are there and how you can use them. If you log on in Spanish, the whole video will be in Spanish. So that's available to kind of give parents an overview of what's here. The second thing you can do is to help your own children with reading and math. Now, we've learned from experience and through field testing. By the way, we should tell you that all of these resources are not just created by the consortium, but they're all field tested in the partner states. So all the resources have to go through field testing, and then they get revised, and they continue to get revised, because you'll find as we move along, there's a lot of resources on the system, and sometimes people will notify us and say, this would be better if you did it this way, or there's a glitch, because as I said, there is so much on the Migrant Literacy NET that there's those resources you were continuously trying to improve them. But what happens, which the way a parent can help their own child, and once again this works best. Okay, we got one question. I created an account as a teacher, and is it in English? Should I create another account for a parent to obtain the Spanish version? The teacher accounts are all in English. If you go on as a parent, then you have a choice that you can create your account either in English or Spanish. So what requirements are create the account, no requirements. You can, you simply need to create a username and a password. We do ask you to put in your actual name, because if you lose that username and password, you can contact us and we can help you reestablish it. That's the only thing that you need to put in, as well as your state.
Mhm.
So we know, so the, anything on the system is related to your state. And so when you go on, you create your own username and password. And what it does, what actually happens with the system is you actually, as a teacher and as a parent, you actually section off a part of the Migrant Literacy Net that's just yours. And nobody else can see that. So if you assign resources to the students, and you have information about students as a teacher, you are the only one that can see that information. No one else can. I can't even see it. And it's the same thing for parents. Okay, we have another question. Would students not have access to the Spanish version? Is it only available to parents in Spanish? No. When you go on to the Migrant Literacy Net as a parent, and this is an example of what we're looking at, when you do your help your children with reading and math, the way we ask parents to do it is by answering a couple of questions about each child that they want to have help with math. They answer those questions, and based on how the questions are answered, the system will automatically assign online math screeners to those individual kids. And the math screeners are designed to identify a kid's needs. And all they have to do is go online, take the screeners, which all have audio and all have graphics that lead them along. And the screeners will identify the kid's needs. Once that happens, the screeners will automatically assign tutorials to meet those needs. And you have a choice. Once you answer the questions, the kids can take the screeners in English or Spanish, and the system will set them up so they have a choice. It's the same way with the tutorials. The kids can take the tutorials either in English or Spanish, whether you've logged in as a Spanish-speaking person or not. A lot of times, families will log in as Spanish speakers, and but they want their kids to take the tutorials in English because they want their kids to learn English. And so you have that option. The kids can take any of the resources online in English or Spanish. So hopefully that answers the question. What'll happen is once you answer, if you're helping your own kids with reading and math, you answer a couple of questions, the system will automatically assign the kids online screeners to identify their needs in math. And then once their needs are identified, the system will automatically assign them tutorials. And the kids can just go online and take the tutorials, which provide instruction in those missing skills. So
you can also, as a parent or a teacher, or an MEP staff member, if they have information and they know, let's just say that Jose needs more help with multiplication, they can do a Google search, or I mean, not a Google search, search within the system for multiplication, and a tutorial can be assigned
by the teacher
without having to do the screeners.
Right.
So there's there's two ways that the students can be assigned these tutorials, either automatically by virtue of taking the screener, or if you have information from the classroom teacher, you can go in and assign tutorials yourself. Now,
this is just a quick overview today, but if anybody's really interested in, a much more extensive training or explanation of everything we're talking about today, just contact us. Whether you're a member state or not, we'll be glad to help. The other thing I wanted to point out is that all of the tutorials that are assigned to students, the online ones, start with a pre-test, so you can get an assessment of about where the kids are to start with. Then the instruction is provided. Then there's a post-test, and all of those pre and post-test scores are recorded back so parents can see them. So there's an example right here. Recognizing and connecting numerals to objects. the child started out at 20%, ended up at 100. Number recognition 1 to 20 started out at 0 and ended up at 80%. We have found that the way the parent portal works best is if you're working in concert with MEP staff that can kind of show them the parent portal and how it works and help them to kind of set this up for their kids. Another thing that we want that the parents can do is we have a whole assortment of family math activities on the system. There's 24 different math activities to support instruction, and those are in English and Spanish. And so you would choose, and they're fun activities that parents can use with their own kids to help them to learn to do math. I threw a couple up here. One has to do with completing and extending patterns. Another one has to do with learning numbers 1 through 20. They're fun activities that you can do just by using the materials off the system or by using some manipulatives that most homes would have available. You can also use these activities in family math nights and actually, bring in activities and bring in families and actually do it with them. But
I just want to interject and make a point here. I personally have been working with Migrant Ed for the last 25 years and spent actually 7 years teaching summer migrants programs in Colorado. But we have been blessed to be part of migrant family re-interviews. And during the re-interview process, I will often ask the parents if they feel their child could benefit from any additional support in reading, writing, math, and or English, learning English. And almost unanimously, they will say yes, they need more help. When I have taken the time to share with them, they are very, very appreciative, especially when they're aware that they can use these resources on their iPhones, their smartphones. And so it's been my personal experience has been the parents and the families welcome these resources.
I think, and Alice brings up a really good point. When we originally designed the system, it was primarily used in schools on desktop computers. And then we realized that the best to really get the use out of this, we needed to redesign the system so that particularly the screeners and the tutorials could be taken on tablets, and also on smartphones. Because if they could be useful and taken on smartphones, then you really expand the possibility. Because a lot of families don't have access to computers or laptops, and some of them many don't have access to even tablets unless they're provided by the migrant program. But many migrant families, I would venture to say most, and in my experience with families is that most have a smartphone, and you can use the smartphones to complete the screeners and the tutorials, and the system is redesigned so that if you access the system using a smartphone, it changes the screens. And so you can actually see very clearly and take any of the resources using the smartphones.
Let me just make one more comment. If you see, it got cut off on this other one, but if you look at the number recognition family activity, down at the very bottom of the page, it says, for additional practice, assign your child math 1E, number recognition 1 through 20. So for all of the activities that the team developed, at the very bottom of that particular skill, whatever it was that they were addressing or that concept, at the bottom of the page, there is a recommendation. If the parent feels their child may benefit from more practice, they can go ahead and go in and assign them whatever.
That's a tutorial. There's an online tutorial which back up these particular activities.
These skills.
Finally, the last thing that we built into the system that parents can do, because it's something that you hear of regularly, is that parents themselves would like assistance in increasing and improving their reading skills, their math skills, their English skills. Some of them are working towards a GED. So we built in parent education plans. Now, these would have to be done in concert with MEP staff, but they are ways that you can identify the parents' needs in terms of their own educational needs, and then apply resources to help them meet their needs, including screeners that will identify their reading and math needs, and tutorials that can help them overcome those needs. You just disappeared. Okay, so that is the parent resources, and we just given a quick overview today, so you're aware of those. If you move to the teacher portal and you access it as a teacher, there are a wide variety of resources for teachers on the system. There are lessons for teachers that contain everything that you would need to do that lesson in the classroom. There's 44 math lessons on the system that are complete with all instructional materials. So you don't need to go out and get a book. You don't need to go out and get anything else. All of the materials you would need are included in the lessons. So, and they can be downloaded as PDFs. And so you can check for lessons that deal with constructs you may want to teach or may want to use. They're all targeting, once again, discrete skills. You know, this particular lesson I pulled up is order of operations, and they contain all the lessons contain all the procedures to do the lesson, all the materials you'll need, as well as related national content standards, related benchmarks to those standards. You know, what procedures you would use, what materials you would use, and there's always a section in the lessons for ELL considerations. So it will tell you, you know, when you're doing these lessons, if you're doing it with EL kids, then these are things that you need to be aware of. So all lessons are mapped to Common Core as well as WIDA standards. In addition, there are screening tools that, to the lessons, there are screening tools that teachers can assign to individual students. The math screeners for the pre-K are number, sense, operations, and patterns, and that's kind of the structure that we've broken the whole thing in for the pre-K to grade 2 range. And these are, you know, we have pre-K to grade 2 and grades 3 to 6. Those ranges are, we don't call them grade levels, we call them ranges. And the reason you would look at it that way is because there are students that, you know, you may have a student that's in 9th grade that is really operating math-wise at a 3rd grade level. So you would have to make a decision what kind of resource you wanted to provide to that student. And so there are some students that maybe 3rd or 4th graders that are operating somewhere in the pre-K to grade 2. So you may choose to give them a screener at that level. Number sense, of course, is, you know, basic numbers. Do you recognize numbers? Do you know them? Do you understand how to count? Do you understand how to count by 10s and 20s? No, that's number sense. Operations typically is addition and subtraction, and those are the main parts of operations and understanding that. And in math patterns, of course, is, you know, kind of the initial fundamental preset for algebra, in a sense, because it's understanding that things go in patterns, and patterns can be objects and they can also be numbers. And so at this level, those are the 3 main things that are covered at these levels. And so what we look at is we can provide a screener that will identify a child's needs in that whole area of number sense, identify what they are, and then automatically assign tutorials, online tutorials that meet those needs. Same thing for operations, same thing for patterns. When it gets to the grades 3 to 5 level, the areas that we're covering there are division, multiplication, more advanced patterns and relationships, as well as, you know, initially equations, expressions, and equality. So it's kind of that algebra readiness piece. So you've got screeners that you can use to help identify kids' needs. All of the screeners are short. We didn't come up with one math screener that covered all of the pre-K to grade 2. That would take too long for students to take, particularly at that level. Most of these screeners take no more than 10 minutes to take. So, and they can be taken in English or Spanish. So you would make a decision which to give it to them. And so once you give the screeners or you assign the screeners, kids go on and take them, and then it'll identify the needs, and the system will automatically assign online tutorials to the kids. Okay, another math resource for teachers are the online tutorials. There are 76 online math tutorials, and these tutorials are extensive. I mean, they start with a pre-test, they end with a post-test. The tutorials can last anywhere from 10 minutes to a half an hour. So there's a lot of material here. We try to cover each discrete skill as comprehensively as we can. One thing I always like to add, that's obvious, and that is that this is supplemental and it's computer instruction. There's a limit to what computer instruction can accomplish. Computer instruction is certainly no replacement for, the classroom. And it's not going to be, something that, kids can take a tutorial and suddenly they know the skill in and out, inwards and out.
It's also important to note that all of the tutorials have audio instruction. The teachers felt very strongly that they wanted to eliminate any limitation of reading ability on the learner part. So it was decided that all of the tutorials, all of the screeners would have audio, so that the student wouldn't be penalized for struggling in reading.
Good point. And they also have graphics. They take the instruction will take the kids through like little games and things that will help them learn the skill. And it will give you a pre-test and a post-test score, so you have some idea of where they are. But it is a way that you can target discrete skills, and you can assign these tutorials primarily to support instruction in the classroom or to support instruction during the summer. Or you can provide them to families that are leaving the district, moving on, so that you've provided a bunch of additional material beyond that they can take on the road. So all tutorials are in English and Spanish, English and or Spanish. So you assign them in English or Spanish. And they cover most of the supplemental instruction that you would need for grades pre-K to grade 6. You have 15 minutes for that. Example math tutorials, and I just kind of threw some up here so you could kind of get a look at them. And this is a combination of the English and Spanish. You got number recognition. The pre-K to grade 2 tutorials deal with number recognition, understanding numbers and counting, recognizing and connecting numerals to objects, comparing and comparing number sets. These are all part of those dimensions of math that we're covering. This is just some of them of the pre-K to 2. And then if you look at the ones that are dealing with grades 3 to 6, you've got things like generating patterns to following a given rule, identifying the arithmetic patterns, understanding algebraic notation, place value concepts. So you've got a wide variety of tutorials that you can assign. You can allow the screeners to assign the tutorials, or as a teacher, you can choose which ones you want to assign. And they are assigned, which is the next thing a teacher has on the system, by these online success plans. We have online electronic success plans, and this is where you would assign the screeners and the tutorials to an individual student. You as a teacher can create these plans for each student that you want to work with using the resources. And they're very simple. You just type in the student's name, and then you can go and you can list math needs if you want, or you can assign math screening tools and let the system assign tutorials to the kids, or you can actually go and select what math tutorials you want to assign. And you would just simply type in the search box, as Alice mentioned earlier, you want to teach, give me a math skill. Any math skill you want to teach at that level, let's say it's identify arithmetic patterns. You just type arithmetic patterns and it'll pull up tutorials that teach that. And then you can simply click assign and it'll go for the student to take. The success plans, what they are is they're like online IEPs, individual education plans that you can keep on individual students, or you can print them out and give them to the parents, and the parents can bring it along to the next school. So teachers have kind of an idea of where kids are at. Another thing that we have put in the system is graduation plans. And this is primarily for secondary teachers. What the research has shown, I mean, when migrant education, I think I mentioned this the other day, migrant education started back in, I think the law passed in '67. When it started back in 1967, one of the main impetus for the law and the reason for migrant ed was that there were so few migrant students, percentage-wise, graduating from high school. And so that became a critical piece. And one of the, when you look at the research related to why migrant students don't graduate, it's because they have a hard time, in many cases, overcoming specific barriers to success. And they might be barriers in literacy where their reading isn't good enough or their math isn't good enough, but it might also be things like, missing, credits or courses or health issues. So we created a plan that you could use, that teachers could use at the secondary level to identify the barriers to what would be in the way of getting this student to graduate, and then creating a plan for how to get around them, and then identifying specifically who would be responsible to help the student move beyond that. And so the graduation plans are online also, and they're there for teachers to use. So there's a wide variety of resources for teachers. Let me back up. Let's see, do we have any questions right now? Yes, it would be, somebody mentioned for OSY, absolutely. We even have tutorials, believe it or not, that were designed for OSY, and there are some tutorials on the system for life skills. So if you're interested in that, please go ahead.
Can you go back to the screen? I'm going to ask Bill to go to the previous screen for just 1 minute, simply because I want to reiterate, when we're working with middle school and high school migrant students, I adamantly and firmly believe in the power of empowering the students with their own learning. You can actually sit with the older kids and develop an individual success plan with them and empower them to pick and choose based on what they feel they need. So as you're working with the older migrant students, this particular individual success plan becomes very personal to them. And then it couples, go to the next, they can see how that plan fits into their graduation plan. So I just want to throw that out there because we have had a lot of success with students taking ownership and responsibility for their own learning.
I see somebody on the chat box corrected me. Migrant ed law passed in 1966, so I stand corrected. Thank you for that. I used this the other day, but I think it's a good little piece. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. So we've been doing a lot of talking. So Alice is going to talk about ways that you can use these math resources in instruction. And
well, we sort of
and then we'll leave it open for questions.
Yeah, we sort of already addressed most of these. To create the success plan and align math screeners online to every migrant student, the students will automatically be assigned the math tutorials that will meet or address their specific needs. The results will be recorded on the student success plan to document progress, and every student will receive targeted math instruction.
I would like to add to this, though, something I kind of, alluded to earlier. Because migrant education you know, we have big migrant states that, you know, have the opportunity to have more staff and more resources. But we have a whole lot of small migrant states. And so, and even for the big states, how do you provide some kind of instruction? Because, you know, OME asks you at the end of every year to provide data on how many kids you provided reading instruction to and math instruction to. And they don't mean how many kids did Title I provided to, or the regular classroom or Title III. What they're asking you is how many of your migrant students did the migrant program provide instruction for? This is a way, by using these supplemental resources, that you can literally provide math instruction for every single kid. And you can legitimately say that when it comes to putting that data together for your end of year reports. Go ahead, sorry.
No, it's okay. The next is you use the screener data to identify student needs. I have said this before in yesterday's presentation with regards to reading and literacy. The same holds. When I receive a migrant student, I'm not sure how long I'm going to have the privilege of having them in my classroom, and I recognize the critical need to maximize my instruction for the time that I am responsible for them. So by using the screeners, I can find out immediately where I need to target my instruction to help them. So
the needs are recorded back on the success plan when they complete a screening.
The next is hold a family math night using the parent math activities. This particular one is near and dear to my heart. I was a Colorado Family Math Equals presenter for like a dozen years. And I would have given my eye teeth to have something like this available for a family math night.
We actually have a canned family night, math night program. If anybody's interested as part of the consortium, let us know. We'll be glad to pass it along to you.
And then the use of, as Bill said, the pre-test and post-test data on the tutorials to demonstrate
impact. And
And
that data is also useful for the evaluation of the state migrant program or your local migrant program. It's hard to show impact. You know, how are you actually impacting kids when it comes to math?
Yes, to answer Miriam's question, did I hear y'all say parents can assign tutorials? Yes, they can. They would have to go in and create an account for themselves.
Success plan.
A success plan for their students. And
for their kids.
For their kids.
And then, you know, that works best in concert with the MEP staff.
Yeah. Assign for homework, parent math activities that support current instruction. Assign Spanish tutorials to EL students that parallels in either a preview or a review format for instruction in English regarding any specific math skills that the child may be receiving in their classrooms. You can use, we have states that use them, the impact, the screeners for their whole math program.
They use the screeners to identify
their
needs.
Whole summer program.
Well, and it's part of the summer program, and the tutorials the kids take to support the instruction during the summer. And you know, that's a real quick, easy way, because, you know, a lot of times when it comes to curriculum for summer programs, you've got to figure that out. Or what your targets will be for summer. So you've only got so many weeks to do that.
And then Bill already mentioned this. You can assign the math screeners and tutorials for students of families who are leaving to facilitate and continue to support their math instruction to minimize that interruption in their learning. And then this is another this last one, we are very proud. We've had a lot of success with high school students who will come down and volunteer to serve as like a peer tutor. They'll actually sit with the student that they're assigned to, 2 or 3, and they'll literally go through the tutorials And
Math activities too.
it's really heartwarming to listen to the dialogue and the discussion. Our high school students have done a great job with that.
I think we're almost out of time, so I think what we'll do is we'll open it up and see if there's questions. I know we covered this very quickly. This is our contact information. If anybody has questions or interests, contact either one of us, and we'll be glad to provide what kind of help that we can.
Are there any final questions that any of you may have?
Are the tutorials, so there is a question, are the tutorials that are assigned through the parent portal the same as the tutorials that are assigned by the teachers? They are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the same tutorials. Mm-hmm. As are the screeners. The screeners are the same too.
There's 2 new messages.
2 new messages.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, everybody is welcome
Yes.
to use the website. Please do, and feel free to contact us if you would like any additional assistance. And we appreciate the opportunity to share these resources with you.
Yes, thank you all for your time and your attention and your participation.